You guys ever had a protein fart?
My name's Cole.
My name is Carter.
I'm James.
And this is Citizen Kane 2, a relatively stupid movie podcast. Yes, sir.
I could never be Carter. I'm so much better than him.
Whoa, we're coming out the gate with that.
Well, now I'm
Love you, honey. How's everybody doing? Nice to be back.
I'm doing all right, man.
Yeah, it's been what, like 3 weeks?
It's been like 3 weeks. We apologize.
James, we thank everybody for actually listening. We've had a lot of people actually tune in to this.
We've had really good feedback. It's very, very appreciated.
We have?
And no one talks to
not
Carter,
you,
but
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, we're back for a very spooky edition of the podcast today. We are how many days out from Halloween? I don't know. I can't do math.
10?
10-ish?
What day is Halloween on? Is it on the 30th?
Oh, it is
30th? Yeah.
What?
Is it not the 31st?
I thought it was the 23rd.
Whoa, guy. You're
Why
an idiot.
would the fuck would it be on the 23rd?
I don't know.
It's on the 31st every fucking year.
That's not.
Well, what's
It's the last
important
day
is
of October,
we are back.
right?
We're going to be talking horror today.
Are we stupid?
Look it up.
Yeah, I think we are. How was y'all's weekend? What'd you do?
might be.
How was my weekend?
Yeah, how was your
Did
week?
you just fucking ask me?
Or I guess it is the weekend now. How was your previous week? I don't
What?
fucking
Monday,
It's
know.
not
October
Friday.
31st. I was on a really crazy set.
Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to put...
You can leave anonymous.
Yeah,
I mean,
brag about it.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say who it was, but she was on The Voice in 2011. And her name is similar to Bara C.
Did she win?
Okay. I don't know if anybody even watches The Voice, so I think you're okay.
I think we're okay.
Especially in 2011.
It was an incredibly unprofessional set. I'm not going to get too far into it, but the talent showed up very late and seemingly very loaded for a music video that I was working on, and that was...
Rate your film experience on that.
Honestly, it was it's actually kind of ended up being a good time because we as a crew really came together to rally around how much we disliked the things that were happening.
Terrible, but you do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's every film set.
It's one of those things where like it was kind of awful, but at the same time, I don't know if there's anything else I would rather have been doing.
Also, I mean, you got to know how to deal with it if the talent shows up drunk out of their mind.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was definitely a good learning experience.
Carter, how was your week?
It was all right.
All right.
Okay. Carter, how many times have you been to the gym this week?
2 or 3.
Carter just doesn't show up to class anymore. He's just either at the gym or watching Ingmar Bergman movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever you should bring them to the gym.
Who?
Bergman at the
movies?
gym.
Bergman.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that.
Get him to put it on one of the screens for you.
Yeah, we just made a joke. If Carter was on his first date, he says, "Hey, baby, let me show you the 6-hour cut of Fanny and Alexander."
And if she says no, sorry.
You can't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to work out.
Speaking of Ingmar Bergman, I watched Max von Sydow and The Exorcist last night at the Jefferson Theater. It was amazing.
It's not a real movie.
All right, well. I can't think of anything that I did this weekend that was notable, or this week. Nothing at all, honestly. Nothing fun. Oh, shit. Yeah, my sister got married,
I was like, didn't your
guess.
sister get married?
Yeah, she got married. Shout out Emily and Troy.
I can't think of anything.
I guess that was, I guess that was on the weekend, last weekend, so. I don't know. Not the week, to be fair. I don't know what I'm fucking talking about.
Yeah.
Anyways, roll the credits.
Well, this is going to be our spooky fiend podcast.
Oh, man, we have a button and everything. Very nice.
Yeah, that we do. And we're going to be talking about, it's October, man. We're going to be talking about horror films, Halloween films, what makes those good, what makes those bad.
I understand that you have some questions for me and Carter. Do you?
Yeah. I kind of want to wait on my questions. 'Cause I think
Okay.
we're all tackling this from 3 different ways.
Yeah.
And James, I was wondering what you had in store for us today.
Well, I guess due to recency bias, there has been a couple of films that I can't stop thinking about. Most of them are David Lynch movies. I'm going to talk about The Alphabet by David Lynch, some of his early short films, and then I'll be talking about Geometria by Guillermo del Toro. which I think is his first short film ever. Cole is rubbing his nipples right now.
Prove it.
I guess I can't. We're not filming this. So, and then I'll throw in some kind of, I guess, underrated horror
Carter
classics.
looks
that
like
have
he's
stuck
about
with
to
me,
cut
so.
his nipples off.
Well, what's the point of that?
Oh my god!
Oh my god, he's rubbing a razor on his nipples. You can't make this
Put
up.
the razor away, Carter.
You also cannot prove this.
Well, I guess that's fair.
That's not true.
The question is, I mean, do we want to get out Carter's Joker coin, or are we just going for it?
Well, I think
That would require me reaching into my bag, which I do not want to do.
Well,
Okay, very cool.
I think we should I think we're all bringing something different today. So why don't we just discuss?
You want me to start?
Yeah. I want to hear you're on a Lynch kick right now.
Okay, so honestly, just to preface, there is almost no way that you can physically describe most of David Lynch's body of work, so I took the liberty of just having other people do it for me. We had just mentioned, actually, we just watched his 3-minute short film called The Alphabet. First off, just initial reaction, Carter just saw it for the first time. What'd you think?
It was traumatizing. I don't know. I didn't like it. No, I liked it, but I can't say that I enjoyed looking at that stuff.
You want to look away as much as possible,
Yeah.
and I have I found that to be true with a lot of David Lynch films in general.
It falls very under the theater of the absurd. It's very it's supposed to shock you.
It's just crazy shit happening
Yeah.
back to back. A little bit of the story,
For all
but
the theater nerds, it's very Tartuffy.
Tartuffe.
Tartuffe. If you read about Tartuffe, it was a theater in the French, a play that was done in the French Renaissance that caused such an outroar that there was a riot in the street and multiple people died.
Oh,
Then they set the theater on fire and shit.
interesting.
But that is like it reminds me very much. If you, I feel like David Lynch could make could have made a
Tartuffe
movie and like had a similar response to it.
That's so metal.
Well, let me just talk about this. This film came out in 1968. I think it is 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. But someone wrote that Lynch's wife Peggy told him of a dream that her niece had while she was just reciting the alphabet in her sleep. Then she woke up and started bouncing around and repeating it. Lynch took this idea and ran with it. First, he painted the walls of the upstairs bedroom black. Lynch painted Peggy's face white to give her an unreal contrast to the black room and to have her head bounce around the room in different positions as he filmed. The footage was edited together by an animated sequence where the letters of the alphabet slowly appear, and the capital A gives birth to several smaller A's, which form a human figure. The soundtrack starts with a chant of the letters ABC, followed by a man singing. Mixed in are other sound effects, including the wind, crying from a siren, and a siren. An adult voice reminds us that we are dealing with a human form, which is followed by a girl singing the alphabet song. Lynch recorded his newborn daughter, Jennifer, crying in an unbroken tape recorder from the film and loved the sound it created. Lynch mixed the sound in a lab called Calvin de Furness, which is where he first met Herb Cardwell, who would later shoot part of Eraserhead. Lynch would also later meet Alan Spelt, and that's where he came time to mix The Grandmother. So, anyways, it's kind of a very jarring thing, and ever since I saw it, I've been sending it around. What he was able to do with these 3 minutes and 48 seconds it's honestly frightening, and he is a classically trained artist, and so that's where he gets his background in, and so it's very abstract. There's not really a meaning to it, and later I'll get into films like Eraserhead, where I was trying to prepare for this podcast. I legitimately could not prepare for something like Eraserhead, so we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, that is my first recommendation.
I caught a bit of that the alphabet and the wind aspect and her wardrobe a lot reminds me of Kurosawa's Throne of Blood, specifically the sequence when they're it's based off of Macbeth. And it's a retelling of it in feudal Japan, but when they're when they meet the witch, who it looks more like some kind of like Japanese ghostly kind of figure, but he plays with like a very similar from a sound perspective, a very similar texture.
Was Throne of Blood made in the 50s?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
50. I want to say 54, but that could be wrong. But
okay,
around there. It's also one of my 5 favorite movies ever.
I have yet to watch it. I honestly have never seen a Kurosawa film. And it's one of those things where you know that he's a master, and it's like you save it on the shelf for a rainy day. Just like it took me a long time to get into David Lynch. I'm like, I don't have the time to sit through 3 hours of the most obscure shit that I can possibly think of. So, anyways, I have a couple more David Lynch things to talk about. But do we want to kind of just break it up and Carter go?
Well, Carter has quite the.
Okay. I'll just go. I'll go for another one real quick. There is another short film he made from this period called Six Figures Getting Sick 6 Times. And I'm not really going to go into that a whole lot just because I straight up didn't really understand it. It's literally sort of like a live abstract painting of 6 figures just throwing up for like 3 minutes. So it's kind of bizarre. But there's one more thing. In 1995, Carter and I were talking about this before. David Lynch got the opportunity to shoot on a very obscure, one of the first cinema cameras ever made, right?
Yeah,
Lumiere Brothers. Okay,
yeah, the Lumiere Brothers.
And that was in 1925. You said around
pretty
that time.
Sure. Yeah, I might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's 1925.
So there are. I'm assuming there's like just a couple of Lumiere Brothers cameras that float around the world now, right? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, and by a couple, like very, very few. No
like
more,
2 or 3?
No more than 3, probably.
Okay. Well, David Lynch actually got the opportunity to use one of the original Lumiere Brothers cameras for a 1-minute short film called Premonitions Following an Evil Deed, which I just showed to Carter as well.
Yeah.
What do you think about that one?
I mean, it was very simple, you know. It was a silent film, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's literally 55 seconds, right?
Yeah, you get 55 seconds to shoot on this camera, so you can't fuck it up.
Yeah.
But through watching it, I mean, it's very clear how much of a mastery David Lynch has over his craft, because he was able to tell a perfectly, what's the word? Like,
it's a coherent story.
Yeah, perfectly coherent story within 55 seconds with no dialogue, just through the use of visuals, which is literally what cinema
and it's
is.
still
it's the way to flex your dick.
Yeah, it's still pretty
It's
jarring though for that 55 seconds. The one scene of the lady kind of in the tube being tortured in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how much pressure it would be to be able to shoot on a Lumiere Brothers camera, and also just I don't know, like you literally just can't fuck up at all. So I do think that deserves a shout out and a warrant just for any super film nerds to talk about. But the real juicy one that I was saving for last, I know Carter has not seen Eraserhead. Cole, have you seen Eraserhead before?
Seen Eraserhead.
Okay.
I watched it in my first film appreciation class back in 2018.
Wow. Okay. It was at Blinn.
Was that Blinn?
Okay. So give me before I get into my feelings about Eraserhead, there's almost an impossible way to describe this movie.
I mean, it is. I think if you wanted to grab like a very snapshot of what the mind of David Lynch must be like, that film is one of the most jarring things I've ever seen. It was. I just remember being in a group of students together watching that, and everyone was like,
"What the fuck did I just watch?
What the fuck is happening?" But like the way he uses the symbolism of all this absurd stuff to really encapsulate anxieties and fears that I think every young man has to a degree.
Yeah.
Is really fucking impressive. I mean, like, using a fucking like little plagiosaur child to like mimic the anxieties of fatherhood is fucking.
It's really ahead of its time.
That's an odd choice, but
that only David Lynch
can make and pull off. I mean, I don't know. I certainly don't have any of the capabilities to make a story coherent that's going around that type of it's just so fucking odd, but it's
one of the most jarring movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's very impressionistic.
Yeah,
it's not about actually depicting the story. It's about depicting how the characters feel in that story through very jarring and very strong visuals, and it is very old school way of making films. We don't see movies that delve into that in quite that way as frequently anymore, and it is more akin to Metropolis,
Right.
and a lot of these like silent, German impressionistic films from the 20s and 30s, than it is, modern cinema, or even the cinema that was being made around that time.
And
It's very impressive.
I think that oftentimes film theorists and kind of the culture of things like Letterboxd, we have to know why we like something 100%. We have to have a strong opinion on it. And if we don't, then, fuck off. But I think the interesting thing about David Lynch specifically, and Carter's going to roast me about the Letterboxd.
No,
Carter's
I'm not
fucking,
going to roast you.
There's some blood.
Well, okay,
coming out of
let me
his
get this
nose.
thought out. I think sometimes it is okay to not know why you like something, and David Lynch films are really about evoking emotion. What did it make you feel? Sometimes it makes you want to throw up, makes you want to just completely just cringe. But at the end of the day, you watch Eraserhead and you're like, I need to take a fucking shower after that one. So Carter, roast me.
No. I wasn't going to roast you because after taking like a few seconds to think before I actually spoke, I agree with some films, especially high art films, such as like The Tree of Life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't necessarily tell you exactly why I like the movie. I just do. However,
I think I felt like that the first time I watched The Lighthouse. Like,
Yeah.
it was very
Yeah,
much
that's a great
more.
point.
The feeling that I got was much more. I think much more important than me pulling away and being like, "Oh, I have a very clear image of what I just watched."
However, I do think when it comes to more commercial films, even if those commercial films are big budget art house films, like big like blockbuster art house films,
like you would talk about like Everything Everywhere All at Once, or
something like
Arrival.
that, or like Dune or Arrival, which are okay. I was gonna say those are all. Never mind. Anyways, I do think that when I watch those films, something that isn't like high art and abstract, I don't have a problem like pointing out why I like something, or like to myself.
Oh, we're
at
aware.
Well, like I don't know. I can watch something and I can just tell you, like I can like it, and then I can tell you why I liked it. Or
I
can
do
dislike
have
it.
to give you a compliment on that, because there's a lot of times where Carter's brain is very film theorist and criticism, which I think in point will turn making him a better filmmaker. There's a lot of times where I just watch shit, brain completely turned off, and I'm like, I liked it or I didn't like it. And so he's able to articulate why he didn't like something or like something in a way where I can actually still respect it, even though I wildly disagree with him a lot of the times. But he knows his stuff, and that's something to be said for.
And I think it is important when you watch something like Eraserhead, which, I mean, like, I need to go back and rewatch Eraserhead.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The first time, it is very impressionistic, so it is more about the feelings that it's invoking and less about a literal structure.
Yeah.
But it's important for you to stop and think about why it's making you feel that way.
Yeah.
Why isn't it affecting you in that way? And that it's weird because films like that sometimes become almost like a personal therapy session that you're racking with your brain, with yourself.
Yeah. It sticks with you like weeks after you watch it.
Yeah. But it's like a great example is, I think I've just recently watched Hereditary for the 4th time.
Right on, man.
I'm probably cruising up in the high teens, maybe.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, this time I was like, okay, I'm gonna be much more objective,
Yeah.
and taking thoughts to myself, like, what is the lighting doing here? Why are these choices being made? What are they punching through? What's probably being punched through that window to give us this effect?
Yeah.
Why the soundscape of that movie is one of my fucking favorite things on this planet.
Yeah.
And it's so textured and then sometimes so not.
Yeah.
And why are those choices being made? I literally fucking squirmed out of my seat, and Jeremy looked at me like I was crazy when we were watching it the other day.
Yeah.
But that will fuck with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Coolest
doing that to
theater
someone.
experience I've ever had, probably.
It was, it's such an impactful movie. Another film that I would consider my top 5 of all time. I fucking love that movie.
Absolutely.
But it is important, I think, to rewatch things that invoke those strong emotions, because often it's hard, I think, in general, to come away from a film experience like that and objectively being like, oh, well, this, this did this, and the mise en scène invoked this type of feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to rewatch things that are important to you.
I agree.
Films,
I agree.
and it's hard. It's hard when you watch something like I've only seen Arrival once, and it is one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite movie.
Right.
But I know if I watch it again, it's gonna wreck my fucking world a second time, and I'm not ready. That sounds like super pretentious, but I'm just not ready for that yet. But also, I do want to watch it with more of an objective mind and less of a,
You catch so much shit the second time that you watch it, that you didn't initially catch. I think just to end my little segment about David Lynch, I think exactly what we're talking about is the way that I have this guy's. And let's see, I actually did credit this guy. It says it can be a painful experience to watch a film and have no idea what it's about. To have the film's meaning nagging at the core of you, always out of reach, yet forward. That's exactly the molten subterranean fuel that pushes David Lynch visions forward. And with his debut, The Perplexing and Terrifying Eraserhead, the director offers no consolation to the encroaching feelings with him that will never find any sort of logical mooring or something to keep our psyches safe. A simple tale about a funny-haired worker, Jack Nance, trundling nervously through a phantasmagoric industrial landscape, in the process fathering a mutant turtle-looking baby who he's left to raise as his new wife abandons her family. Eraserhead is an astounding act of burying independently minded cinematic exploration in popular consciousness. You may not know much about Eraserhead, but you probably know what it is. And whether or not it's a meditation of the horrors of fatherhood or a glimpse at the weird evolution of physical intimacy in a dying ecosystem or a groundbreaking work of DIY sound design or whatever the hell. Eraserhead is a black hole of influence. It's gross, it's soul-stirring, a visceral nightmare, and to this day it's unlike anything I've ever seen before, which may or may not be a compliment. That was from Dom Sincala.
Well, and I think, not that a film needs to move you to have impact, not that just because someone with a reputation says it's really good, you should just immediately assume, oh, this is for me or this is something that's going to impact me. But it does speak volumes when you're, David Lynch and you have guys like Stanley Kubrick and Martin Scorsese who are both that guy's fucking insanely good. You know what I mean? And so when you can have people of that caliber as fans.
In the late 60s and the early 70s, competing with some of those dudes, being one of the four-founders of just, I don't know, new stuff.
Kubrick said that he thought he was the best filmmaker that he was competing against at one point.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I think that was after he had seen Eraserhead for the first time.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me happy to hear.
Yeah. Which, obviously, if Stanley Kubrick
gives you he complimented two people his entire life, Ingmar Bergman and David Lynch.
So if you have someone like that saying how they see you as a peer, that's
I would be able to die there. So I want to hear about Mike Flanagan because Carter, I see his beautiful notes, handwritten notes here, and I also love Mike Flanagan with a few exceptions, but I think me and Carter have similar tastes on this. So take it away.
Okay, before I get into that, I just want to clarify something about something that you talked about. Mm-hmm. Only because, so when you were talking about my analyzing and articulation of films that I just watched, what I wanted to clarify, there's quite a few people in my life who think that I just can't enjoy movies because I do that.
Yeah.
I'm not, when I'm watching a movie, I'm not sitting down taking notes during every single movie that I watch. And I'm not just sitting there analyzing every single thing. It just happens. It's all subconscious. I don't even realize that stuff unless it really sticks out until after the film. I guess I don't know. I guess I just have the kind of brain that is...
You have a very analytical brain, for sure.
I guess so.
Cole and I will just pop an edible before a film. We're like, doi.
Yeah. That's how I prefer my first viewing experience. For me, that's why I have to... If I am in that state where I'm popped... Or I guess whatever. My first time viewing Hereditary, I was coming down off of psilocybin.
Yeah.
So, which I think is one reason why the fucking clicking noise really is engraved into my subconscious in a way that's probably not good. But That's neither here nor there.
We both watched those. I watched it on shrooms with Valerie. Shout out.
But I'm just looking for my, what emotions, and maybe that's unfair to certain films because I think there are movies where I'm just like, I'm never going to rewatch that because I didn't have an immediate, connection with it. But also, I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
But that's why I have to go through a second or a third time. It wasn't until my second time watching Florida Project that I realized the reason that movie stuck with me to such a severe degree was really the colorscape.
It's a great film.
And the way the camera itself is painting two different images with the children's perspective and the adult's perspective. The first time I just felt moved. The second time I was able to sit there and start to think,
It's almost like you can find beauty in I don't want to say trash, but just the great part about Sean Baker's movies is he'll do it in the most ordinary places that are very relatable.
Yeah.
Like Southeast Texas or Florida, and you see beauty in the mundane. So
Sean Baker, did he make Red Rocket?
Yeah.
he did, yeah.
Okay,
Sure did.
yeah.
Shot in Beaumont, Texas.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Park Del Mar.
But like in the same way, Kurosawa's movies, particularly Throne of Blood, which not the fucking, just sit there and but it, my first time viewing it, I was just like, okay, first of all, that's the best Macbeth I've ever seen, hands down. It's better than any English.
How many Macbeths are there? They're like,
Dude, there's so many.
There's so many.
Didn't Polanski do one?
Polanski has one that is very good. It's very traditional retelling of it. But I'm saying also, I have seen between films and on stage, I've seen probably 7 or 8 different Macbeths.
The North one is kind of another one. Technically, it's based on the story that Macbeth was based on.
Right.
So.
You said the Northman?
Yeah. The Northman is based on the Legend of Amleth, which is what Macbeth was based on.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so you mean and it's also like they are very common themes in that story that are played
The
off
Lion King.
The Lion King. Lion King, I would consider. You can definitely consider a Macbeth retelling.
Don't you love when like Shakespeare whittles his way into modern cinema?
Just everything.
Yeah.
Into
Oh
everything.
my god.
Okay. Well. Okay. Especially in Western cinema, every character trope that's in every film has its base in Shakespeare some way, from a subconscious perspective.
That. Yeah.
But that's, and to be fair, a lot of his things comes from classic Greek plays. When you're talking about the Festival of Dionysus, which is the first congregation of Western storytelling, which is also if you read about the Festival of Dionysus, because it is the roots of what we're trying to accomplish as young filmmakers.
Interesting.
Because it is a festival in which all the greatest playwrights, would come together and they would show their plays, and this is where they would kind of judge each other. But also everybody is drinking spiked wine, and by spiked I mean spiked with psychedelics.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so it's this crazy week-long festival of tragedies and comedies and drinks and booze and celebration.
And probably orgies too,
and
right?
Probably some orgies somewhere around there.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah. But that is the foundation. That became the foundation for all Western storytelling. Now, in Eastern cultures, you have a whole different way that develops. But what's really interesting about Kurosawa is he takes both of those and just bam,
nice.
They're both here. They're both being represented, and I'm playing with it in a way that no one else has, because no one else has, willing to put down their superiority enough to blend them this way. And Bong Joon-ho is also like, he's the modern rendition of
Kurosawa.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I've never heard that, but I could maybe see that.
Just in the way that they're willing to take Western and Eastern cultures, taking all these character tropes and then finding a way to mash them together. I don't think they're very similar in that.
That's beautiful.
In that fashion. But this is a long, really weird, drawn out way of me just talking about
going back to Mike Flanagan.
Well, just like watching stuff and analyzing stuff. My second time watching Throne of Blood, the reason I was like, how can you tell Macbeth, which is Shakespeare, it's very wordy, it's very airy.
Yeah.
The reason you're so engaged is because he understands that film, you need to have something on the screen. Something needs to be happening.
Yeah.
And the movement if the characters aren't moving, the background's moving. There's a story in that film, particularly for the shots with the witches. You know, he had no way of faking weather effects back then.
Yeah.
Especially with what he was doing in Japan at the time. And so they literally camped out for 2 weeks until a storm was strong enough that he decided it would get the effect that he wanted.
Did I tell you I have a copy of Throne of Blood on Blu-ray?
That's fucking dial it up, baby. I mean,
and you're gonna hate that I got it for like $4.
Yeah,
too.
I hate that too.
Yeah,
I stole my Criterion copy of Throne of Blood.
Oh, good. I love that.
Anyway,
okay,
I'm so sorry.
So
Carter, it's time
it's all
for
good.
your spooky aspect of this.
Okay, actually, before I talk about Flanagan, okay, I wanted to talk about something that is like, it's a horror show that's been out for about a month, and I find people's reactions to it to be particularly disgusting. It's a new Jeffrey Dahmer show, and I thought we could all talk
all
about
of that.
Yeah.
God damn, bro.
It's the show itself is not glorifying Jeffrey Dahmer or his victims or any of that.
But a lot of the people watching it are.
Exactly. It's been #1 on Netflix for about a month and a half.
Because there's hot garbage on Netflix, and Ryan Murphy is greenlit for 20 different shows at the same time.
Okay, well, I will say this: it's a fine show. It's fine. The episode 5 particularly it's a fine piece of filmmaking. However, people's reaction, they're obsessing over the show.
Yeah.
They love the show a little too much. People are dressing up as Jeffrey Dahmer, and it's
that.
quite disgusting.
No, that's like I'm taking a pop culture serial killer class right now, and it's become really hard for me to attend.
Yeah.
And not from like, this makes me sound like such a pretentious asshole, but it's just like it really bothers me that there's this sect that is like, it's becoming fetishized in
It
such
very much is,
a
yeah.
way that like, and not everybody, it's not like everybody in there, but there's like a group of people, and every now and then they start saying stuff, and it just makes me kind of get like a little like,
Yeah.
you understand they were murdering people, right?
It
And,
gets
like,
really
ending
gross.
people's lives and
Whenever people start profiting off of that, Ryan Murphy is prime example.
Yeah, none of the proceeds go to the victims or anything.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't that long ago, and
No, not at
so
all.
you have to ask yourself when you make something like that: is there a point to me actually making this? Are you saying something? Are you watching for signs of a potential serial killer? That's not really a problem that we have today. Well, we have, in different forms, but
Right. No, I was
know.
working on a script recently that I this weekend decided, actually like 2 days ago, I decided to totally scrap it.
yeah,
Because I just felt like, as much as I was working on it and toiling on it, I felt very aware that I might be playing into some of those tropes,
Yeah.
mainly because I was trying to condense this into less than 10 minutes.
That's easy to do.
And I was like, this is not accomplishing what I want to accomplish at all. It's not saying anything more meaningful. And I'm afraid that just based on the climate we're in right now, if someone watches this, they're going to digest it like a Jeffrey Dahmer show or even like a fucking Jason slasher.
well,
or
like it's
something.
like the Ted Bundy movie that Netflix made. First off, you cast Zac Efron. Obviously, everybody loves Zac
Fuck,
Efron,
man.
Yeah.
but at the same time,
He did a good job, to be fair.
He
But
did a good
still.
job, but then when you start pointing things out like that, they're like, "Oh well, Ted Bundy was handsome." I'm like, I don't give a fuck. He just killed a lot of people. Like, I don't care about his persuasiveness. Any sort of
You could cast someone who's handsome. Maybe just don't cast the guy that is like
teenage heartthrob
that's
Zac Efron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Any sort of like bringing extra attention to that is what they would have wanted, and they probably would have enjoyed their own TV shows about it.
Right.
And so Ryan Murphy has been kind of an issue for quite some time. He kind of fictionalizes a lot of his stuff in weird ways. And he was, I watched a lot of interviews about him in this Dahmer show. But more importantly, the people that were on the production of Dahmer, there were some people that spoke out and said it was a terrible set to work on. And Netflix, like I said, gives this guy free reign.
Yeah.
American Horror Story got bad after like the second season. And
It's
he's
been
just
going on for, so long.
It's so bad.
So long. I try. I think I try quasi frequently. I'll watch a couple episodes of a season and then give up on it.
Yeah.
And they did two. They split it up into two separate ones, and there was one that I was really following along, and then it just went down a very sexualized Like,
Which one is
pill,
it?
The one there's like fucking vampires and this little black pill and shit.
Oh, the American Horror Stories.
Stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I watched
yeah,
that
I
one. That
didn't
was
watch
not. That was not good.
No, that's my point. But I liked a lot of these things that they were playing with, and then just the longer it went on, the more they added all this bullshit.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like 5 or 6 episodes for that one story.
I feel like he
This is
paints
terrible.
gay people in a way that are just always so overtly sexual, and it's just
Sexual and also horrific.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I
like,
mean,
it's
there's
like-
no point.
The sexier are, the deadly they are, the more killy they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
I have got to take a little sidebar here. Speaking of horror stuff and TV shows that have come out recently, there's hardly any TV shows that can keep my attention. But The Patient with Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson is one of the best shows that I
I've
have
heard
seen
it's really
in
good.
a while, just because of the range of Steve Carell specifically. But I know Domhnall Gleeson from Ex Machina and Black Mirror. I had no idea that he was in Harry Potter.
What did Dom who?
Domhnall Gleeson is his name. He's the ginger dude from Ex Machina.
Oh, the actor.
Yes.
Okay.
He stars alongside Steve Carell, and it's a very basic premise. It is a serial killer who goes to therapy, and once he finds out that he keeps on killing people and the therapy's not working, he chains his therapist to a bed in his basement, and Steve Carell's basically trying to talk him out of committing these horrific crimes and murders, just for him to be potentially a threat at the end. But he also kind of relates it to his experience being a Jewish man, and it's kind of interesting how they relate his incarceration to the bottom of the bed to he has these dreams where he meets Viktor E. Frankl in Auschwitz, which is the man who wrote Man's Search for Meaning and survived in the concentration camp. But it has a beautiful way, very simplistic way of what it is like to be Jewish. So anyways, give it a watch. It's like 24 minutes each per episode.
what's that on?
Hulu. Yeah. It's the best thing I've seen in a while. Anyways, Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I can go super deep into this because I went like relatively deep. That'll take longer, or I can just go over it very simply. I mean, what do you think?
I mean,
is best?
I think you and I have you seen many of Mike Flanagan's TV shows?
No, I don't think I've seen
I
it.
thought you
Okay.
saw. I thought you saw Hill House and Bly Manor.
No, Kylie has.
Okay.
I can pretty much
Why
go.
don't we get her on the show instead of you?
Well, I was gonna say I can probably spar with you a little bit about
Okay.
Hill House and Midnight Mass. I didn't like Bly Manor at all, and I didn't really like Doctor Sleep. And
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Doctor Sleep either.
yeah,
Oh, I have seen Dr. Sleep.
you shouldn't just don't do a sequel to The Shining. And that's not even Mike Flanagan's fault entirely. Stephen King can fuck off. So begin, my
Okay,
friend.
yeah. Firstly, I want to talk about Mike Flanagan's approach to horror because I think right now, at least, I know it's a bold statement, but I think he's the the modern king of horror right now, and he doesn't always hit it out of the park. And that's a very subjective opinion.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
But
Cole and I side-eyed each other with that.
he doesn't always hit it out of the park, but when he does, I think he does a very good job of it. And so he approaches horror very differently than a lot of filmmakers who are like demons, monsters, the paranormal. And although he does have some paranormal stuff in there, his approach is and his execution is what changes the game a lot. He rather than looking at demons and monsters. What?
No, nothing. I just have to pee so badly.
Do you want to go?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go.
Okay. Put the chair on the door. Oh, okay.
Well,
Put the chair on the door so you don't
Yeah, I got
have to knock. Do you want me to continue?
Yes,
Or do
this can continue.
Okay.
I'll come in.
Okay.
This guy.
So he takes an approach of like what scares him, like what scares me. And in the case of The Haunting of Hill House, it's there's a family of 7, or I guess a family of 6 really. And he asks himself, what scares me? There's a family. One of the members of the family commits suicide. That's what horrifies me. So I'm going to build the horror of the show around that idea. With The Haunting of Bly Manor, what scares him is falling in unconditional love, knowing that death is waiting for one of you. And how are you supposed to live without that other person? That's what he finds horrifying in that show.
Pure existentialism, right there.
Exactly. And that's what that show is designed. The entire show is designed around that conceptual idea. And with his most recent project, The Midnight Club, his fear in that, he's asking himself, what terrifies me? A close group of...
What, Midnight Club?
Yeah, it's his most recent project.
What's that on?
Netflix.
I'm back.
All of his stuff is on Netflix for the most part. But The Midnight Club, in that he asks himself, what terrifies me? A group of close friends that are very tight-knit, and they all love each other very dearly. However, they all have terminal cancer.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that's
The
what...
Midnight Club?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what terrifies him in that show. And so
I like that his fears are very existential.
Exactly. And
which explains a lot why you have 6 pages written by him.
Maybe so. But yeah, he explores all of those with ghosts and stuff, kind of. Another thing I want to talk about with him is jump scares, because he is not a fan of jump scares.
Yeah.
Which is funny because in the Midnight Club, he had executives pushing him to do jump scares. So, as kind of a FU to the executives, he put 21 jump scares in 5 minutes of footage.
Holy shit.
And he has a world record for that. And he did that to show the executives, hey, this is why this isn't effective. But, however, he still does use jump scares, but he does them tastefully and they have a purpose. Right. For example, in The Haunting of Hill House, you have Theo and Shirley who are arguing in a car, and the ghost of Nell, their sibling who died, jumps out from behind the back seat and starts screaming. And she does so to stop them from fighting. That's her goal, because she hates seeing her siblings fight. Because they're alive, they should be loving each other. And so that's the reason for that jump scare. And by the way, it's the scariest jump scare. When I first saw that, I literally lost my breath, actually, and I dropped my phone. That's the only time that's ever happened. But anyways,
I gotta just do a sidebar.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about Haunting of Hill House. That is the best. Well, I mean, there's not many horror TV shows, but that's hands down the best one that I've seen, and it has stuck with me. The image of the bent neck lady who is the pass away sister.
Horrifying.
Nell.
I had nightmares about that.
Yeah, I remember binge watching this, and then driving home, and then I just see her in the side of the street, and I'm like, holy fuck, that's scary.
Yeah.
And the one funeral scene, in The Haunting of Hill House shows how magnificent of a director Mike Flanagan is.
You're talking about episode 6.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an hour long and it's done in 5 takes.
Yeah. Carter's gonna wank off over that part.
Yeah.
And it's done in 5 takes.
Yeah, I personally am not a fan of just very extreme long takes.
Carter is.
But when they're done tastefully.
When they're done tastefully, yes.
Yeah.
That's one of, I will never forget that. And I have not rewatched The Haunting of Hill House just because I'm a little scared. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna watch that shit alone.
Yeah.
And I bought the Blu-ray with expensive
maybe,
longer
maybe
episodes.
Kylie and I will start that tonight. You're gonna.
You should, man. It's so
it's
good.
very great.
And she said she would rewatch it with me.
Yeah.
It might give you nightmares though, legitimately.
That's okay.
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna talk about Mike Flanagan's use of ghosts, because he doesn't always view ghosts as necessarily scary or evil, or even as spirits like humans that are that did move on. Instead, he views them as metaphors. Like a ghost is a wish. Something that Steven says is in Hill House is that a ghost is a wish, a memory, a daydream, a secret, grief, anger, guilt, trauma. That's what ghosts are, the things that haunt you.
Playing with the concept of ghost is my favorite thing.
Yeah,
about
me too.
About Del Toro's The Devil's Backbone. That's the thing that stuck with me. I like playing with the concept because I think Ghost is such. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go on a real tangent about Ghost real quick.
No, it's all good.
Ghost.
And while you do the Del Toro thing, I have to talk about his quick short film, and then we'll go back to Mike Flanagan.
Okay, because Del Toro is really good about this. There's other directors who are really good about this, but Ghost are so important because they have such a significant cultural influence. Because every human culture from every part of the globe has ghost stories. They have ghosts, and they all have things in common and things that make them different and unique. And I just think it's very interesting when you play with the concept and make it something a little more elevated than like, you know, like that's gonna get overused. But you know, I appreciate that because it is something that is like inherently human.
Back to you. I'll
thought
do
you
my
were
thing.
gonna-
I'll do my thing after. It's cool.
You sure you can go over?
Yeah.
No, do it right now.
You're in
Okay.
the middle of a thought. It's all
Okay.
good.
So I guess now I'm going to talk about Hill House as I'm not going to talk about it as a whole because it's very
There's a lot to cover.
yeah, it has a lot of depth and it's very complex. So I'm only going to focus on I guess my favorite things about Hill House. But with that being said, I want to talk about Hill House specifically because I do think it's Mike Flanagan's magnum opus. However, I prefer The Haunting of Bly Manor for personal reasons, which I'll briefly get into later.
So James, Hill House is the one that you prefer.
Yes, Bly Manor was bad in my opinion. Like I honestly didn't like. There was the episodes Flanagan directed was good, and then there was like what 5 or 6 directors after that, right?
He only directed the first episode.
Okay, well then, however long.
Okay, well that
Yeah.
like
It
do you know
seemed-
how like in Secession there's not one writer and director for every single.
No,
episode.
I know, but Secession flows a lot better, and you can tell it's like a cohesive story. Bly Manor's complete story kind of seemed like it was all over the place, and there were several different conflicting timelines going on. And at the end, there wasn't as much of a payoff for me, and I almost considered stop watching. I finished it, but I thought about stop watching it because I held it higher, and I was like, "This is what he does after Hill House," and it was a Citizen Kane syndrome after that one. So.
Yeah.
But
Well, he's wrong, but it's just an opinion.
yeah, it's just an opinion. I mean, you can. I would love to hear you talk about Bly
Okay,
Manor
yeah,
for a little bit.
yeah.
but-
I'll talk about it after I'm done with Hill House. But anyways, also I think Hill House, and I'm aware that this is a very subjective thing.
Uh-oh.
Very subjective. You might want to get the crickets ready. But I think Hill House is the single best piece of horror media that's ever been made.
Says no one ever.
I think it's like I love Hereditary and everything. I love like every horror film that we've mentioned before. But
I
then
haven't
again,
seen it, so I can't be like that.
it's very subjective
but-
because I have a very personal connection to Hill House and Bly Manor,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's why I think that.
No, I agree.
Oh.
It's
That's
like
completely understandable.
Jurassic Park's one of my 5 favorite movies. Do I think it's one of the 5 best movies?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Right. Okay. So now I think I'm gonna get into Hill House. So I'm gonna read a summary of the plot because
Please do.
I didn't write one myself. So, anyways, the plot alternates between 2 timelines following 5 adult siblings whose paranormal experiences at Hill House continue to haunt them in the present day, and flashbacks depicting events leading up to the eventful night in 1992 when the family fled from the mansion. And in the present day, the story kind of follows 5 siblings who have lost one of their siblings. So now there's only 4 to suicide. Nell Crane, played by Victoria Pedretti, who it's her first role, and
I
she
love
did
her so much.
absolutely fantastic.
That's her first role?
Yeah, that's her first role.
That's insane. She
Yeah.
did so good.
Yeah. But one of my favorite things about this show are the characters and what they represent and how the kind of like trauma that they go through. So I guess I'm going to go through each of the characters and then like each of them represents some form like a one of the stages of grief. So I'm going to go through that and then say how they react to the trauma that they had when they were children, when they're older, and the occupation that like their job that they currently do, because it's also relevant to what they went through as a child.
Let's do it.
So Stephen Crane represents denial, and because of the trauma that he went through as a child, he grows up and he kind of denies everything that happened. He thinks it's a mental illness passed down through his family, and so because of that, he gets a vasectomy in fear of passing down that mental illness, and he doesn't tell his wife about it. And they end up getting they end up going through like a divorce or like on the verge of a divorce because of that. And he's a writer, and he also writes about ghost stories. He doesn't himself believe in ghosts, but he writes other people's ghost stories because of that. Shirley represents anger, and she later in life becomes a mortician because when she was a child, she her mother died. She saw some dead cats. It traumatized her. So that's how she reacted to that, by becoming a mortician. And some of the trauma that she goes through in the present day because of what she experienced in the past is she cheats on her husband due to I can't remember the fear that was there, but she did it. I can't remember why, so I'm not going to go into it now. I sound stupid. But anyway, something that's really morbid in the show is that Shirley is the one who actually takes care of Nellie's body. Her sibling who killed herself, she takes care of her body, and which is really, really dark.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to sit through and watch. But anyway, on to Theo, played by Mike Flanagan's wife. She represents bargaining, and her reaction to the trauma when she was a child. She becomes a semi-alcoholic and a child psychologist. So there's that. These last ones are a lot less complex, but not in the show. I just wrote a.
I like the way that you have that thought out, though. I think it's really, really thoughtful, and I mean, it's obviously something that I didn't initially pick up when I first watched it because I was just scared shitless.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, watched it a bunch. So
and it's also got. I can tell you, it definitely has a lot of depth, and so I think it deserves to
Carter,
be analyzed to that extent.
Don't you own like a unique box set?
Yeah, I'll get into that. I will get into that afterwards.
How much money did you spend on that one?
I will get into that afterwards, and I
Okay,
will
all right.
shout out the woman who deserves to be shout out.
Katie Video.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so on to Luke. Luke represents depression, and he handles the trauma that he went through as a kid by becoming a drug addict. Very, very heavily. And so I actually want to talk at episode 4 for a little bit. Because he's at rehab, he's clean for 90 days, but he has a friend who runs away from rehab. So he goes out and he looks for her, finds her, and they're walking around the city trying to find some money. And Luke is, by the way, the episode title is The Twin Thing. Luke, throughout the episode, it appears that he's getting sick, like really sick, perhaps even like going through withdrawal, or as if he's taking more drugs. But really, if you watch it a few times, you start to realize that he's feeling his twin's death. He's feeling Nellie's death. He's feeling her neck, which snapped. He's feeling her body growing cold. And
Did this come out in 2018?
2018, yeah.
Okay, it's been almost 5 years since I've seen this.
Yeah. And Cole, I apologize for the spoilers.
It's okay. I'm trying to turn my brain off a little bit.
Okay.
You won't remember.
But
it's fine.
yeah, knowing that he's feeling his twin's death hurts. Like when I realized that in the episode, I don't know, that just hurts knowing that. It's very well done. And see, Mike Flanagan doesn't tell you that. Like it's something that's very subtle, that's done kind of by the actor alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's there for you to pick up on, but he's not spoon feeding you, which is something that I love. It's there for you to pick up on if you want to analyze it, and it makes it almost like a really, like so much more of an enjoyable experience, knowing that there's so much there that you can pick up on because Mike Flanagan refuses to spoon feed the audience because he trusts his audience to be smart.
He's one of the best directors on Netflix, I can tell you that. I mean, he's got nothing but Netflix original stuff, and he's pretty much one of the only people who have actually got me to go back to Netflix. So.
Yeah. And then there's Nell, the sibling of Luke, the one who committed suicide. I'm not going to get into how or why or the events leading up to that. But anyway, she represents acceptance, the last stage of grief. And she really only represents this after her death, her ghosts. And then there's Henry, the father, and he is keeping things from his kids that they possibly shouldn't know or wouldn't believe about Hill House, which leads me into like the editing of the show. Actually, it's very non-linear. Things are revealed to us as the episodes go on. The only episode that I think is no, that's not even linear. Never mind. The entire show is non-linear. And so it's very engaging because of that, because we have to wait to get answers.
Right.
And once again, it's very subtle. He doesn't spoon feed you anything. you have to kind of figure it out yourself, and that's very smart.
Cole, if you want to start The Haunting of Hill House, we can like watch an episode a night, or if you want, so like we can have like a little book club sort of thing.
I would love that.
Yeah, we can analyze it next
Yeah.
week. Anyways, we
can do a little report on it.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah.
First off, before I whore the microphone again, do you have any short films or horror movies that you want to talk about? Cole?
Yeah, we can take a break from Hill House for a second.
Well, we can get into what I was bringing to the table today,
Okay.
which is actually not about. It's much more abstract than talking about a specific movie.
Yeah.
So Carter, if it starts to go on, jump back in with more of your written report you have.
Okay.
But from a filmmaking perspective, I wanted to ask you guys, what are things that you look for in a horror movie, or things that if you were to make a horror movie, things that you'd want, how do you want to go about it? How do you want to address it? Because I think horror, first of all, it's a genre. You're talking about making a genre film. And so there is inherent things that define that genre that you have to play with or not play with. And I think horror is a very unique one. Because first off, originality is hard in horror.
Absolutely.
There's so many horror films that are very cut and paste, almost damn near the same thing, because there is a certain mold that is guaranteed to make money, and so studios like to fund things that have that. Not that, I mean, obviously a 3-act structure is fine. It's just,
Well, okay.
how you tackling that?
I will first start with probably the very first short film that I made that is absolutely terrible, but I do still love the concept of it. It was called The Astral Plane, and it was at a time where I was really worried about death. My mom was on the verge of dying, and so subliminally I was kind of going through that. And through the process, it's not unfair to say that I was completely losing my faith. And so it was more, what was the scariest thing that I could possibly think of? It was me at Judgment Day, begging to the possibility of if God's real and if I did enough to get into heaven. And so I got into this old abandoned church, and I had my actor in this kind of grotesque pig mannequin thing that was kind of following through him throughout all these different stages. And when he got to the altar, it was sort of like a purgatory type of deal, to where he had to plea for his life, whether or not he could ascend to the astral plane in existence and happiness and stuff like that. But it turns out he was kind of sentenced to the hell aspect, which he just wakes up in his bed and he wakes up kind of as a ghost, and he can see everything that's going on around him. But his loved ones, he can't interact with his loved ones. And so I think at that time that was really kind of terrifying to me, some of those ideas. I think a horror film doesn't work if you don't look introspectively at what's scary. That's why jump scares are overplayed, because just if you get a rise out of somebody, that doesn't stay with you. I don't think about the 2 jump scares in Paranormal Activity or whatever.
Yeah, it's more shocking than scary.
Yeah. And so I guess it brings me to, before I did my most recent horror film, I had written a 90-page film called Golden. And again, with the religious trauma, very heavy, but it starts off with a mother figure dying. And it's kind of about the birth of not necessarily Antichrist, but one of the main demons of hell, and what situations would arise from his upbringing that would bring him to the point where he would finally take his throne as the king of hell or whatever. Anyway, so I had not realized how much of a cathartic experience writing can be after I realized that I put myself in these characters, and I had no idea that I even did that. So it's very intimate. It's I can't say it's the best thing that I've ever written, but I'm in love with some of the things that I did have in that script. And the fact that I was able to kind of see it through towards the end makes me excited to write another one. But yeah, just religious trauma is something that scares the shit out of me. The idea of death, things of that nature. But I have to do some self promotion about the film that's coming out soon in December.
Yeah.
Cole stars in it. The title is called Secret Santa, and there's no deeper meaning to this other than the fact that I just had a shitty Christmas, to where a lot of my family was kind of fighting after my mom passed away, and it was just a terrible time. It was the worst Christmas that I've ever had. And so Cole and I get into a room together, and we're just like, what if like you kept opening up boxes at Christmas catered to your worst nightmares? And so without giving too much away, we shot a 80s film, 80s horror, cheesy 80s horror movie. And I'm really proud of it. And Cole acted his heart out. And I'm not going to say anything else aside from that. But if you have anything to comment on that, you totally can.
It was my first time acting in a film project. Previous, all my acting experience had been on stage, and it was a different experience. But it was really awesome and rewarding, mainly because of the people I was doing it with. And I think it's one of the best things, or at least I saw not even the final version of it, and I'm not going to see the final version of it until the premiere.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the best things that's come out of our film program that I've seen. And you should feel proud about that.
I appreciate that. I do want to compliment every single person that worked on that set. Our job as the director, it may seem like it's
so
a very...
Carter was there too.
I was gonna. Carter was my gaffer, and
Yeah.
all the light work looks amazing.
It was one of the best sets I've worked on. It was really fun. The best thing, my favorite thing, and particularly because I don't make films like this. My favorite thing is when we're all together. I mean, you, Cole, me, James, Valerie, Deli, Ivan, Paige. All of us.
Yeah.
Chandler, Hector, all of us. Jesus. It's just the best time. We have the best time, and I think, make the best work when we're all together. And
Absolutely.
when you
We
have
inspire
a set
each
of
other.
20, 30 people, it's, I don't know. There's nothing more fun to me. Even if the film that we're making isn't great, it's still so worth it, and I wouldn't change it.
I didn't expect when I switched to film. It was largely because I just didn't feel like I could work in a professional setting in theater. I didn't think that was in the cards for me. And coming to terms with that was difficult. But film has been such a meaningful experience to me, because the thing I was afraid that I was losing, I didn't lose at all.
Yeah.
Being able to do this collaborative art form where you're working with other creatives who are all working together to all putting their unique, aspects into it and creating something. I got into theater because I injured my leg and could no longer play sports. But I never really cared about the sport as much as being involved in the team.
He's a fantastic actor, by the way. He did it just seamlessly, and I was just going to say, the job as the director, you would think it's the hardest part, but when you have a talented crew and actors that Cole needed next to no direction whatsoever, he got it right pretty much the first time and every single time. So, it just makes my job look a lot easier, and it just makes me look cooler than I actually am. So
Yeah, it also shout out to Deli, the art.
Oh yeah,
work in that,
and Paige.
Yeah.
The wardrobe helps really sell it.
Oh,
On
yeah,
point,
it's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, and then a lot of the I don't want to
There's
say too
some
much.
vicious death scenes.
There's some effects in there that are awesome.
I wouldn't have even known how to do any of that if it wasn't for Deli and Paige. So shout out.
They killed it.
And also Cole is not only a good actor, but he's also a great director. He directed, I think, his first film last year.
Yeah.
Which is not done, but is being worked on.
Yeah.
Still. And he did a great job on his very first short film.
It's pretty sick.
Okay,
And it was also one of the best sets that I've worked on. It ran so smoothly. We finished 30 minutes early.
Carter was my boss, and I wanted to kick his ass the whole time, but it was a great time.
Yeah. Carter was the cinematographer, and James was operating as the gaffer.
Our preparation was what made it was a really smooth set.
No, it was.
It was chaotic, but
it was
they're all
chaotic.
chaotic.
They're all chaotic. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I wish we would have planned for 2 days.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
why it's still being worked on, and we got some cool stuff coming up with it. But anyway, it's
What were we talking
We were
about?
talking. Here we are. We were talking about, as young filmmakers, what are the things that you think makes good horror?
Oh yeah,
Right.
it's your turn.
Okay. Well, okay. So I think 2 or 3 short horror films, and they're all bad. They're all bad, and they don't say anything
That's
interesting.
okay.
But they have made me realize, however, that I think the most important, the 2 most important things in horror that allow the audience to hold on to their suspension of disbelief and also create more fear in the audience is lighting and sound, specifically
That's a
in
big one.
horror.
big
Yeah.
time.
Huge. And I recognize that in Smile, which I saw just a couple days ago.
Oh man.
Has some really good lighting. Not all of it is perfect, but there's some where you can barely see like the outline of a person hidden in shadow.
Yeah.
It's really creepy imagery, and also the sound is great.
That's what stuck out to me the most rewatching Hereditary this time.
Yeah.
I think my
Lighting.
my second time watching it, I was like, okay, this soundscape is what
The
makes this
Gaffer is a
movie.
beast for that movie.
And then
Yeah.
watching it this
Cinematographer.
last time, I was like, man, the things that they're playing with lighting wise is,
It's advanced for sure.
yeah, and it really sells the emotion.
Yeah, but I also think the most beautiful thing about horror is the fact that you can talk about it's relatively easy to talk about things that have deeper meaning if you come from a place of personal fear. However, I also would say that probably the 2 hardest genres to make films in are horror and comedy. I'm
I
not a
agree.
big fan of comedy, but I am a big fan of horror, particularly elevated horror. And it's just so hard to do.
Yep.
Once again, because it's hard to get great lighting like that.
And you're also playing into a genre film, which is,
Yeah.
I think, always inherently
You gotta,
more difficult.
Carter and I really suck. We just don't really like comedy movies like at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
I mean, there's
I'm
a few.
I'm fucking Mr. Chuckles over here.
Yeah,
so.
it's got to be the most bullshit like Seth Rogen-y comedy movie for me to laugh. So
I love really good satire, but that's not what this episode's about, so we're not going to get to
Yeah,
it. But if you've ever
so-
seen Network, watch Network.
yeah, right. Let me plug one in real quick. Just because Cole did bring up Del Toro, and I watched his very first short film recently. It's called Geometria. So I'm gonna read a quick thing about it. It
I'm
says,
going to go pee. Okay. Or do you want me to say first?
no, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
I've been drinking cold brew, and it's just
Yeah,
making
I'm
me
going to
like,
piss.
okay, very cool. And Cole will be able to help me out with this part. But Geometria gives a quick, ghoulish peek into the developing mind of Guillermo del Toro. Clocking in at 6.5 minutes, Geometria tells a story of a boy, Fernando Garcia Marin, in trouble with his widowed mother Guadalupe del Toro, for having failed his geometry exam for the 3rd time. Vowing to never fail again, he sulks off to his room and he draws a pentagram for protection. And then he summons a demon to grant him wishes. One, of course, that he passes geometry. The second wish is the return of his dead father. Being that this is a horror short and from the mind of Del Toro, these 3 wishes have a very grim monkey's paw type twist. The punchline of it all is that the boy's inability to pass geometry rendered him unable to know how many sides of a pentagram should have, therefore making him vulnerable to the demon. So it's a horror comedy, but it was made in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Some of Del Toro's effects is just, you can see it's the blossoming of what was to come for his career.
Yeah,
So
I think he is the monster movie king.
he is, and it's not about. I would make the argument maybe it's not about horror, but moreover like seeing monsters in a different light, and him talking with
How are these things reflections of ourselves?
no, exactly, and he had so many fears of monsters that he decided to befriend them, and I think that's really beautiful.
My
So,
my favorite thing about, and I think we have now talked about it every time we sit down now, is fucking The Devil's Backbone.
yeah,
Because it is the Spanish Civil War was such a terrible time, and it's not about these. It's more than just the idea of ghost haunting people. It is, what is it like to be a child growing up in a nation of ghosts, a nation that is haunted, a time period that is filled with grief and sorrow, and playing with those things is in the way he does delicate, but also like Shape of Water is another great example of taking like what is a very typical monster movie, then exploring these deeper thoughts in it and asking questions about humanity and what qualifies as humanity.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Shut the fuck up. I do have a question for you guys. Since we I think we're probably going to go to an hour and a half,
Yeah.
but since we've barely named but like 2 or 3 horror films, would you guys like to either talk? I'm going to give some options that we can kind of have a 3-way talk about. If
Can
that's
I
okay?
talk about one thing real quick?
Yeah, go
Because
for
I do
it.
want to talk about what I think makes a good horror movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you get into that, I still, I have no idea how urinals work. I hate them.
Well, I hate the splashback. We're in 22.
Yeah, that's
and
what
why
I'm
are
talking
we,
about.
No one's fixed that.
I hate how.
Come on, Baden.
It's pretty.
God damn it.
It's pretty like I don't know. It doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
Makes me feel bad.
Talk to me about horror movies, Cole.
Yeah.
My well, I think you talked. My biggest problem, the biggest pitfall, I think in horror making is spoon feeding your audience.
Yeah.
Because that is the number one way to ruin the dialogue in your horror film. Your horror film needs to be it needs to be people having normal conversations, and then they become influenced by this evil, this horror.
Yeah.
It just plays a lot better. Anytime that you decide to get expository about the supernatural, you completely ruin the whole concept of being scared of the unknown. And it's the number one pitfall I've seen. A lot of horror movies go straight out the fucking window.
Yeah, because they're not written well.
Because they're not. Yeah.
There's no reason why a horror movie shouldn't be written well. So
I think it's a pretty easy concept, and it is definitely more of a studio pitfall, or tends to be. But like, I mean, there's a lot of horror movies that I just can't fucking sit through.
I agree.
And it's because you decide to get so expository on what is something that is inherently abstract, and the abstract is what makes it fearful. A great example of this, I think, is Alien, the original Alien movie, because it is very much about it's obviously genre bending, but it's very much about the fear of unknown. Like,
would you say that's a horror movie?
100%. The
I
first
agree.
one,
I agree.
the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is not.
It's action horror.
The second one is an action movie more than it is a horror movie.
I also think it's a horror movie.
The first one is definitively, I think, it's one of my favorite horror movies because I think it's very fun. It's genre
scary
bending,
as fuck.
but it's scary as fuck. But the fear is not that, like, there's things that have tried similar concepts and they always fall into this pitfall where they're like, some scientist guy's like, let me explain to you about this alien right quick.
Yeah.
Or whatever this creature is real quick, and it does this and this, and it's known to do this. And that fucking ruins it. The fear is they have no idea what the fuck is on this ship, and they have
Right.
no idea how it's gonna fuck them up, and they don't. It's all new, and they're experiencing it, and the fact that they don't know how to handle it at all is the reason it is so scary and so frightful. The fact that they don't know once the cyborg aspect gets revealed and is part of it, they don't know who's on their side. They don't know who they can trust. They start off as what seems so cut and dry. They know everything that's going on, and it goes to the unknown. Jurassic Park, I think, works in a similar way. Obviously, it's nowhere near as scary.
Right.
The book is very much horror driven, though. If you ever do read the book, it would be rated.
Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park.
Michael Crichton?
Michael Crichton. The novel itself is it would be rated R if you made
Interesting. I've never heard of that.
a direct adaptation. Oh, yeah. I mean, and also every death scene is first person in the book. What?
Nothing.
I don't know. Carter just gave me a pat on the back. Did I do something good?
But
I need a Scooby snack.
Every death scene is first person in the book, and it is very horrific.
That's awesome.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because unless we want to make this longer, just to name a few of the ones that I was going to potentially talk about, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I watched The Exorcist last night. Rosemary's Baby, The Conjuring, The Invitation, Babadook, or Poltergeist. If any of those stick out that you guys want to spar
There's some
about,
of those I really like, and there's some of those I really dislike.
which ones do you dislike?
Babadook is one of them.
What?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, if you're referring to the
English horror.
It's Australian. It's an Australian
shit.
film.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to even talk about that one then.
Yeah, if you're talking about the most recent one,
I mean, there's only one, I thought.
Yeah, it's directed by a woman. That I say
I'm
that.
thinking of a different movie.
The Babadook.
Yeah, I'm thinking of.
He's a gay icon. It's actually true.
No, I'm thinking of the one with the fucking kid it's a political.
Yeah, no, it's not political.
I mean,
this
it is a
movie.
kid. It's like a kid and a mother.
No,
Yeah, but this
I know
movie
which
is
one you're talking
political.
about.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the one where the dad is some kind of fucking ambassador who works
No,
at the embassy. And
Yeah,
the
there's no
kid
dad in
is
this movie,
haunted.
Cole.
Okay, I admittedly was thinking of a different movie.
Okay.
I don't do slashers in general.
What was the other
Oh.
one that you didn't like?
It's Chainsaw Massacre being
You
one of
didn't.
them.
You don't like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I don't care for.
I also
Interesting.
don't.
I
like
think
that.
it's a very
Okay.
typical slasher. It is better than other slashers that I think fall into a similar category.
It's one of my favorite of
But-
all times, just because I think I like Toby Hooper a little bit, and that's a very low budget. I don't think he even turned a profit on that movie, and it's just, I don't know, it's creepy as fuck. I like it. But which ones did you like on that list?
Give it to me one more time.
We have The Exorcist.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
Who doesn't like The Exorcist, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Rosemary's Baby,
fantastic.
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring's great. I actually like the sequel better.
Me too, brother.
Interesting. Okay.
I think
okay.
I think the second one gives me just a little more chills and thrills for my buck. After
guess-
that, the series starts.
The Invitation is like a it's kind of an obscure A24 that's just like not everybody has seen. So it's a great cult movie. But then Poltergeist. was
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
one.
Yeah, but I mean, Poltergeist is like. I'm not going to say it's the movie that started my love with horror films, because it's not. The Shining was the movie that started my love with
Yeah.
horror films.
Poltergeist is another Toby Hooper.
But Poltergeist I watched earlier on, and was the first time when I realized that, like, oh, someone can do something different.
yeah.
And and part of this was age. And part of this was that the people around me who were curating my film, my grandfather, my father mainly, the ones who were curating my film experiences at a young age. My dad doesn't care for horror films, and my grandfather only cares for very elevated horror things.
I do have to give a shout out because I did watch Poltergeist for the first time, and it's probably the second or third Toby Hooper movie that I've ever seen. But I just found it interesting that since Spielberg wrote it and produced it, he was too busy shooting E.T. that year that it came out of, so he tapped in Toby Hooper, and I think that got him more acclaim. But personally, Spielberg is a huge fan of the horror genre itself, but I don't think his movies have ever taken it to the dark level that he could have.
Yeah.
And because it's always a little action adventure, it's always a little.
I mean, I think his scariest film is Schindler's List, which is like,
yeah,
you know
honestly,
what I mean?
yeah.
Because that movie is so grounded, it's what makes it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I do think he's a genius. He's not anywhere near my favorites list. But the fact that he gave it to Toby Hooper, and that you can see abundantly like Spielberg and Toby Hooper collaboration, it's just great. And I don't think it did well at the box office either, because I do remember reading a letter from Spielberg to Toby Hooper. There just was basically saying, fuck them. They didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Either that or it was critically shat on.
My grandfather, which again is like usually not a big horror guy, but like that's up there for him. That and The Shining are like probably his two favorite horror films.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't even think about The Shining.
The Shining was was the first time. It's the first time I think a horror movie when I watched it, I was like, this actually gets what fucks with me. Like I don't care about some dude with a knife or it's like slashy yeah. Like that will, or Paranormal Activity is a great example. Like that will stick with me for the next hour.
Yeah.
And then like when I first watched The Shining, there's more of an existential fear that comes along with it. And I think there's other films that do it better. But that was the first time I started to realize like there are people trying to tap in to something. Rosemary's Baby does it in a really fantastic way.
And before we shoot it back to like Bly Manor and Midnight Mass, there was one thing that I wanted.
Hill House and Bly Manor, not Midnight Mass. That's not on here.
Okay.
I like
all right.
the show,
Well,
but it's
before we dish it back to Mike
That's one of my
Flanagan,
notes.
I did want to. We can't do a horror podcast without discussing Ty West kind of exploding in the past year or so. I did not know his name whatsoever. He was like not a household name. and then obviously X came out, and that was probably one of the most. Cole's like, well, this guy, shut up. That was one of the most original horror movies that I've seen in a while, and a lot of people make the argument that it is so similar to something like Texas Chainsaw. I had a great time. Pearl, Carter, and I watched together with Travis as well.
Hey, Travis.
Hey, Travis.
Hey, buddy.
I think we both had a wonderful time watching Pearl.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like after Love X, Don't Love X, Ty West like demands to be known. After that, I had no idea. Valerie had told me that he was a part of VHS. He was probably a part of the good parts of VHS because there were several different directors.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that film.
Yeah,
personally.
but I didn't know Ty West had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming his shit was probably the best out of it.
Probably.
And then I had recently watched a wonderful film that he made in 2009 called House of the Devil, which sounds like such a generic, just random ass horror film. But I do suggest it. Greta Gerwig, for all the Greta Gerwig stands out there, she's in it. I'm not going to tell you what happens to her. But anyways, watch it. It's great. Pearl is great. X is great. I'm excited for Maxine.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just list off some of my favorite horror films real quick?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We're in no rush. What
Yeah.
what time are we at?
We're at an hour 20.
Yeah. There's.
Do
no
we need to
rush.
do a second?
No, there's
spooky
no
season?
rush. There's no rush. I got.
Well, either we do a second one or we just let it run to like 2 hours. But
That's fine.
Well, let's just run it. Well, if it
gotta-
goes to 2 hours, I'll break it up into a two-parter.
okay, all right, yeah. Okay, yeah. Continue. I'm sorry.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Whatever, guys.
We'll fix
This
it in
might be a
post.
long one. This might be a spooky.
I gotta finish this Mike Flanagan thing.
I know.
That's
you
gonna
finish
take
the Mike.
45 minutes.
You
No. It won't take.
no.
45 minutes.
You finish your Mike Flanagan, and then I'll get into some of my favorite horror spills. Yeah, we'll just have fun. If we go long, I'm sorry.
Okay. Are you
so
sure?
bad.
Are you sure?
bad.
Because the rest of this all very cohesively flows together.
Oh my
So-
fuck. That is like that is
No,
5 pages.
I promise it's not as long as you think.
Okay.
A lot of it
Can you give
reads
us
very quickly.
Can you give us the Carfax?
the what?
No. Just hit me with it, Carter.
Carfax.
I'm ready. I'm
What is-
prepared.
what is
Shut
a
up.
Carfax?
Okay. All right. That's like a.
I'm not getting
not
this
even gonna do that.
Carfax thing.
All right.
You talking about Cliff Notes or something?
I'm gonna pee on you. I'm gonna have to pee again.
Okay.
you.
Wait, do you actually have to pee again?
No, ladies and gentlemen, Carter Johnson has the floor.
Hey. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my favorite thing about Bly Manor, which is Hill House. Sorry, The Haunting of Hill House, which is the theme, and I think it's what makes it so rich. Which is at least you can interpret multiple different things for the theme. I interpret the theme to be forgiveness, because throughout the story we see the family members hurting each other and fighting in various different ways, whether it be directly or indirectly, passive aggressive, or just straight aggressive. But Nellie's death, their sibling's death, brings them all back together. However, all they seem to be able to do is fight with one another, which is where there's a few jump scares throughout this show, and a lot of them have to do with Nell trying to stop her ghost trying to stop her family members from fighting, which once again I think is a very unique use of a jump scare. It's not meaningless, and it's also scary. Mike Flanagan does what James Wan does when it comes to jump scares. When he has them, it's things that are nearly tangible. They're either dangerous or they're meaningful. He doesn't have any false jump scares where there's a loud noise and then it's like, hey, Mike, what are you doing? It's like the random person who comes behind another character. And my favorite scene in the entire show is at the very end. All of the siblings apologize to Nell's ghost in Hill House for various things, which she forgives them for, which allows them to forgive themselves and each other. And okay, now I have a question for you, Cole, because I don't.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a poem that Mike Flanagan takes a lot of inspiration from for Hill House, and then in the ending scene he has like his own version of it throughout the characters, and I wrote their dialogue down. I can either read it myself or I can have it ready on my phone. If you would rather me read it, I can do that, but the delivery of it is much better.
Yeah,
from the
play it,
audio.
man.
Okay.
Yeah, just play it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the poem is called Epitaph by Merritt Malloy.
Oh, I thought you were gonna play
Well,
it.
no, I'm going to do that afterwards to show
Okay.
how Mike Flanagan takes that poem and says it with his characters. So it's called Epitaph by Merritt Malloy, and it goes, "When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you with something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away."
Now, Carter, I know you personally have written things that have been inspired by that.
Yeah. Because of Mike Flanagan. So let me pull up how Mike Flanagan interprets that poem, or how
Now we're
he
all
says it.
depressed. We're just sitting here
Yeah.
like, wow.
This is how he says it in Hill House.
I don't know how to do this without you.
I learned a secret. There's no without. I am not gone. I'm scattered into so many pieces, sprinkled on your life like new snow. There's so much I want to say to you all.
I'm so sorry our last words were in anger.
They weren't our last. Sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't answer the phone. But you did. So many times.
I'm sorry if I didn't listen, and I'm sorry.
Wouldn't have changed anything. I need you to know that. Forgiveness is warm. Like a tear on a cheek. Think of that and of me when you stand in the rain. I loved you completely. And you loved me the same. That's all. The rest is confetti.
Gee. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's
and
heavy shit.
it hits much heavier when you can see like the visuals of it, because you can see Nell's ghost talking to her siblings, and it makes it so much more impactful. But that broke me at the end of Hill House. I was a mess, and it was the first time that I ever found myself asking myself, Carter, you're watching a horror show. It's something that's labeled under the horror category. Why are you an absolute sobbing mess right now? And
I think we all gravitate to things with poetry. I mean, The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth both start and open with poetry. I mean, pretty much everything that we've written thus far in like our own short films are just, visual poetry. But
and it's
what?
What's up?
I've written like mini muffins in a fucking bunny movie, so
Hey, that's poetry in its own form. So
But
Carter
yeah,
and I are
it's-
just old saps, is what it is. So
Yeah, it's that I don't know that show is very meaningful to me.
that was beautiful. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let that dialogue that you just heard kind of speak for itself, and I'm gonna move on to Bly Manor briefly. I'm not gonna talk as in depth that I did about Hill House because, once again, I think Hill House is Mike Flanagan's magnum opus, and I think that deserves to be talked about. However, I was more affected personally. As much as Hill House affected me, I was more affected personally by Bly Manor. And so, first of all, The Haunting of Bly Manor is the second season of The Haunting of Hill House, but it's an anthology. So, different story, different place, different characters, different time. And the first thing I want to talk about is how The Haunting of Bly Manor is mismarketed really badly. Which is not the fault of Mike Flanagan. It's the marketing team, because they got to sell the show. They got to make sure people watch it. And so they market the show as if it's another season of Hill House, but a different story. They market it as just as scary. They put all of the semi-horrific imagery in the trailer and edit the trailer to make it seem more horrific, more akin to a blockbuster horror. And that's not what Bly Manor is at all. It's a gothic romance more than it is a horror. It has horror in it. But once again, Mike Flanagan views Bly Manor as being scarier than Hill House, because what's scarier to him is two people falling in unconditional love with each other, knowing that death is waiting for one of you. And it's going to get one of you before it gets the other one. And that's what he designs the whole show around, that horrifying idea.
Does anyone know the song by Jason Isbell, If We Were Vampires?
No, but I know Jason Isbell.
You should listen to that song. It's about the same thing. The whole concept of the song is imagine what life would be like if we were vampires, if we were immortal, and we didn't have this. It's about him dealing with that same existential fear where, you know, realizing that he has a true love, a deeper emotional love with somebody. He's found, like, you know, the concept of a soulmate in a person.
Yeah.
And realizing that sooner or later, one of us is going to have to spend time without the other one. And how life, that fear is kind of like always in the back of his mind, and things would be easier if immortality was an option.
Yeah.
That's maybe one of the scariest things to me ever. And not to get too dark, but just like remembering my mom's last days, and it was just that's it. You know, that's what you have, love at the end of it. Nothing else matters. Matters who's next to you on your deathbed. And if you got to spend however short it was with the people that you loved, every second was worth it. And, you know, to live till 90 years old might be ideal to some people, but to spend every single moment with that sense of appreciation for the people around you, that's what's more important.
It's not necessarily the time as much as the how you spend that time.
Yeah. And I mean, like Mike Flanagan and Merritt Malloy both say, you know, they're not gone. They're dead, but they're not gone.
It's very true.
They're still, you know, they live on inside of you, and, you know, your arms that you put around other people, and in your love. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Now I want to go cry. So
yeah.
Let's have a group therapy session.
But also the horror in Bly Manor is far more quiet and restrained and more conceptual than in Hill House. It's executed in a much different way. It's a lot more patient. It's a lot slower. And I mean, similarly to Hill House, Bly Manor is a meditation on love, loss, grief, pain, and something that Hill House didn't really talk about, which Bly Manor does, is dementia. And it's a very heavy meditation on dementia. And that's shown, interestingly, through the fact that the ghosts in Bly Manor, first of all, they're not scary. And in Bly Manor, they're not scary ghosts. They look just like normal people. In fact, most of them are, they don't interact with the other characters. The ones that are hidden in the background, you know how he likes to do that with his ghosts. But also, there's only one ghost that is scary in the show. I'm not going to get to that because that would, I would be diving deeper anyways. And I said I wasn't going to do that for the show as much as I want to. But dementia is talked about a lot. And he shows that kind of visually with ghosts, in that when a person dies and they become a ghost, over decades or hundreds of years, those people that remembered them aren't around anymore. And so because they're not remembered anymore, their face fades away and they don't have a face anymore. And he uses that as like a visual, it's very visually symbolic of dementia in a way, kind of losing yourself, forgetting yourself.
I really do appreciate the way that you look at that, and it makes me wish that I went into that show in a different state of mind.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when you go into something and you can have preconceived ideas of what you're going into, and it can spoil it for you pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I knew that Flanagan didn't direct the whole thing, so it made me extra harder on the filmmakers who made the extra episodes. And I mean, the show that I'm watching right now, The Patient, is directed by several different people. It's created by 2 people, and I'm sure they were on set for it. But I didn't have the same reaction towards that you did. I was probably pretty high watching it as well,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure if I analyzed it. I was thinking, man, this isn't Hill House the entire time.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
Yeah,
you
that's
It's
the
not
point.
fair. It's not
Yeah.
fair.
well, that's
but-
hard. It's
It's the point. It's not. That's the whole point. It's not Hill House.
Yeah,
That's
and I was
something very
I was
different.
looking for such a visceral response like I had with Hill House, and I didn't find it. So,
Yeah.
but that's not to mean that the show is bad in any regard. It's just it hits home with different people, and I think that's the beauty of film in general. So
Yeah. And also, damn it,
sorry.
I lost
Damn
my
it.
thoughts. I think I was talking about the ghosts and their faces fading away once people forgot them, and how that's visually symbolic of dementia, right? Well, I lost that thought.
Well, I mean,
It's okay.
do we have any closing remarks? I know that we're kind
Yes.
of reaching that point.
Yeah,
James, I have more to say.
yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. Okay. Do you
let
want to
me-
go to 45?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Let's do
45.
let's do
Okay,
45.
let me finish this. I just have a few more things. That's all. Firstly, just want to talk about like two of my some of my favorite quotes from Bly Manor, just because I'm a nerd.
Throw it in there, baby.
Give it to me.
One of the very first things that you hear in the first episode is to truly love someone is to accept that the work of loving them is worth the pain of losing them, which is ultimately kind of what the entire show is about, because it's about unconditional love through and through. A little girl in one of the most emotionally impactful scenes, I think she's like 7 or 8 or something, says, "Dead doesn't mean gone," to a man who just lost his mother to dementia. And then she explains how when her parents died, she felt like she was dying. Like she was wandering around, not really knowing where she was going. And then she realized she has to be alive to feel that way, because she's not dead. And her parents aren't dead. Her parents are dead, but they're not gone. They're still with her. And one of her favorite things is slipping into those very beautiful memories that she had with them. Another thing that there's another part of a poem that is written by Jose Olivares that kind of sums up what Bly Manor is about. Partly, not completely, because once again it's very complex, very rich, has a lot of depth. But the poem reads, "My therapist says I can't make the ghost disappear no matter how much I pay her. All she can do is bring them into the room so I can get to know them, so I can learn their names, so I can see clearly their toothless mouths, their empty hands, and their pleading eyes." And I think that's relevant to Bly Manor because once again, the ghosts in Bly Manor are not scary. They're, I don't know, they're kind of melancholic. And with some episodes, you actually get to see the perspectives of what the ghosts are going through, which is really emotionally impactful. And I also just want to say one last thing about Bly Manor, because it's very important to me, and it's a big statement. Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor is the reason I'm a filmmaker. It's the reason I want to be a filmmaker.
I love that. That's great.
And I didn't realize that until after I watched it, because the last episode, the climax happens in 15 minutes, and then there's a whole nother hour left. And in that entire hour, I was just a mess, and I had never felt anything like that before. And it shows like the power of cinema. It can cause you to feel things that you never would have dreamed of feeling before, and that's what the show did for me. And it made me want to make others feel something, possibly, that they hadn't felt before. And so, yeah, The Haunting of Bly Manor is the reason that I am a filmmaker. It's the reason that I'm on this podcast today.
That's beautiful. Jinx.
The last thing I want to get into, and I'll make this really short. Also, we haven't talked about Jordan Peele at all, which
Yeah,
is a
we
disservice.
skipped. I mean,
Which is a
Ari
disservice.
Aster. I mean, you can assume that Ari Aster
We talked
is
about
like,
Hereditary.
well, no,
a
yeah,
fair
but
amount.
like, Yeah, I mean that's like number one. We're skipping over so many classic.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Continue though. Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele is, I think, one of the best horror directors out there. In fact, I'll say it, and it's a very controversial take, but Nope is my favorite movie I've seen that's come out this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a statement.
That is a statement. To be fair, I haven't seen X or Pearl, which are
Okay.
supposed to be really awesome. But I mean, I like it better than a lot of the other movies I've really liked that came out this year, like Everything, Everywhere All at Once, or The Batman, or Amsterdam is a lot better than people are giving it credit for.
Dude, I've heard some terrible things about that film.
I know, but there is definitive issues with it, but also it is. I think if you like Wes Anderson at all, it seems like David O. Russell's doing his like dark interpretation of a Wes Anderson
that's
film.
convenient because I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson
I don't
guy.
like Wes Anderson too much either, but I wish Wes Anderson would just stick to being Wes Anderson and no one would try to replicate Wes Anderson.
But I don't think it's necessarily. It's a very dark noir film, and so it is different. But it there is a lot of the symmetry, the technical stuff. My favorite thing about that movie is it's telling a part of American history that's really been as like pushed aside as much as possible, and it's important to tell those type of stories. There is
Jordan Peele.
Yeah, Jordan Peele. He's fucking amazing. And I think he gets a bad rap because his horror debut is Get Out,
Yeah.
which I is one of my all-time favorite horror films and one of the best movies to come out the last decade, and is fucking awesome.
Us gets a lot of shit too, and that's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
so.
Us is great.
Yeah.
Us is great, and I think Nope is awesome. It's it's a fucking awesome monster movie. Now, to be fair, I like monster movies a lot. I'm a Del Toro bro.
Yeah.
Um,
Del Toro, bro.
but it is very good, and my favorite thing about him as a director is, and it comes from the fact that he's an actor and the fact that he's a stage actor, is he knows 100% what that character's favorite drink is.
Yeah.
He knows what that character thinks about when he's going to bed at night. Like he knows everything about these individual characters that he's writing and directing, and I feel it in his characters every time. Like his characterization is so on point, and I love it. He knows their fears, their anxieties, their favorite music, who they hang around,
right?
What they're comfortable with, the things that drive them. And there's just a lot of people who get paid a lot of money to make movies who don't put.
You can tell he has fun
thought.
with it too.
Yeah, and he has fun with it. And they do crazy things. They used a fucking infrared camera for a lot of the filming on Nope.
So, quick question: we just rank his 3 movies for me.
Oh, I mean, Get Out's number 1.
Yeah.
I like Nope more than Us.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I think Nope is his worst movie.
Yeah,
By like a long shot.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's things that are done in Nope that I think are just really awesome. Particularly, I like the characterization in it a whole lot.
Yeah.
Particularly Keke Palmer's character is.
See, I like Daniel Kaluuya. I'm not a big fan of Keke Palmer.
I think she's so good in it.
What-
but Daniel Kaluuya also is highly underrated.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He is one of the best actors living today. He's fucking insane.
Rank Jordan Peele real quick.
I've only seen Get Out.
Okay, well he can't
Yeah.
be in this conversation anymore.
But okay, one last bit I want to go to. I have 3 films that aren't typically they're not really horror movies. They're not considered typically horror movies, but they deal with things that are very anxiety
Horrific.
and fear and scary. Make a case, just thoughts about the idea of referring to them as a horror film.
Yeah.
The one that James just turned me on to, The Virgin Suicides.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I think you can make a legit case that there is a horror aspect to that film, even if a lot of it feels more like a coming of age movie.
Absolutely. It's about the suffocation of what it can be like to have parents that are suffocating. But
It's about religious trauma in a way that is horrific, in a way that is a real fear.
it's haunting for sure. That's the correct word.
100%. And I think James and I
We love this movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
I think you can make a real case that that's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Prisoners.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
agree with you 100%.
I don't think
It's almost noir, isn't it?
Yeah, and
I
it's not.
consider that a horror movie.
And it,
yeah.
but like but a lot of people won't, right?
You're wrong.
Nocturnal
They're
Animals
wrong.
is a horror as well.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a big misconception. I think there's a big misconception in horror that something that something has to be scary to be
Yeah.
labeled under the horror genre.
Yeah.
And I disagree. Prisoners is not a movie that causes me to feel fear. However, is it not terrifying that your daughters get kidnapped in broad daylight
No, that's
Absolutely
terrifying.
and that it breaks you down and essentially turns you into a demon?
You lose your humanity. through
exactly.
it.
That's
Well, it's
horrifying.
like Get Out was nominated for Best Comedy at the Oscars.
That doesn't make
Yeah,
sense
that's
to me.
bullshit
Whoa.
and racist. Actually,
kind of racist.
Yeah.
But like Prisoners, it's not like your typical horror movie, but it is about probably the scariest thing that could happen to any
Oh, yeah.
individual. And it is about if you are a parent and your child is taken from you, what lengths will you go
yeah, that's
to regain your child?
no, absolutely not. That's terrifying.
It is
It's
one
a
of
horror
the-
movie.
It's exactly.
It's a horror movie. Through
What
and
was
through.
your third pick?
My third one, I think, gets overlooked as a fantastic horror movie. And I swear to God it's a horror movie. And y'all made me fucking watch it, you assholes.
Which one?
Which one?
The Father.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
100%.
You want to talk about existential dread? I mean, you want to talk about the psychological fear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a movie that captures it better than The Father.
Do you
There's
know
not.
if we do this next episode about the Oscars, we can start off with The Father being
Okay.
nominated
Well,
in 22?
why don't we make that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, guys.
We had the best time watching The Father. Like for real.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very
Yeah.
traumatizing, but we
We
did.
just all cried.
We trauma bonded
and
together.
hugged.
Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Katie Video.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
plug our promotions.
Okay, so
Sponsor us, please.
yeah. First of all, I love Hill House and Bly Manor so much.
We'll do it for
and
VCRs.
Yeah.
I have been waiting. Katie Video is a woman who owns a business where she makes VHSs. She makes VHSs
Yeah.
of modern cinema.
They're beautiful.
Films that don't have VHS releases, and her artwork is incredible. And ever since I saw Hill House and Bly Manor, and through James figured out about her and her business, I was like, oh my god, I would pay an unlimited amount of money to have like a box set of those two.
And he did.
And then one day she made that. One day she made it, and I spent $500.
And
on
Flanagan is friends with her.
yeah, they work. Yeah, it's a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
She has support from him, and his wife. And so yeah, the box set is incredible. It's beautiful. I wish I could show you. But yeah, I spent $500 on it, and it's very valuable to me. It's priceless. So shout out to Katie Video.
It is KADI Video on Instagram
Yeah.
if you want to go check her out.
Yeah, she is the leading force in bringing back VHS.
Weird
Incredible
flex.
woman.
But on that note, thank you guys for listening. We had a wonderful time, and we'll see you for next time.